crime and thrillers, bought the world English language rights to 2 thrillers by Patricia Cornwell. Yes, that Patricia Cornwell. It doesn't get much bigger than that. Patricia Cornwell is, according to some sources, the 2nd best-selling female author of all time. You know who number 1 is, right? I don't have to... Okay, it's J.K. Rowling, but you knew that already. They are assembling a list that is not only phenomenally successful, but one that has a lot of big names in it, slowly stealing those big name and legacy authors from traditional publishing. And one of their great advantages is that they're aligned with Amazon, the retailer, and for that matter, increasingly aligned with Amazon Studios, which is generating a lot of content, not only for the Amazon Prime streaming channel, but also for films, some of which have done very well. To give you an example of that, in February, Amazon Publishing signed a deal with Michelle Miller for the World Book, audiobook, and global media rights for a series of short stories titled The Fairer Sex. Again, short stories, a tough sale in New York, not impossible but tough, but Amazon's buying it and paying serious money for it. They are, in fact, a significant publisher in today's world. Whether you want to go that way or not, that's your call. They have many of the same obstacles you'll see at other traditional publishing. You will need an agent, which is sometimes challenging to achieve and means you're going to lose some of your profits because the agents have to be paid. If you're with Amazon Publishing, you are not going to appear in those Barnes & Nobles or probably any other bookstore. But, and this is what Ms. Bruder said in the same interview I just quoted, she thinks that Amazon's ability to reach millions of readers online and to sell such large numbers of books offsets the relatively minor loss of physical bookstores, physical retail opportunities. What she's saying is that bookstore sales today cause about 5 to 7% of all sales in the country. Amazon alone sells more than 50% of all books in this country. And if you take in all of the online marketplaces, it's even larger. Bookstores, we all love bookstores, but the sales generated there are relatively small compared to the online marketplace. So, while I'm not telling you what to do, you have to decide for yourself what fits best with your personality and your goals. But Amazon Publishing is definitely something you should consider if you're interested in traditional publishing. My interview for this podcast is with James Scott Bell, one of the most respected and renowned writers and teachers of writing in the country today. He's going to talk about how he puts together series characters and how you might do it as well to create a successful series. Here's what he had to say. Jim, thanks for being back on the podcast.
It's great to be back, Bill.
Last time we talked about all your books on writing, which are invaluable to anybody who aspires to write or is writing for that matter. I wanted to talk about your other work, your novels this time around. You've got how many series? At least 3 that I know of.
Well, I've got, I've got 3 series, one of which is a zombie legal thriller series. I did that one for fun because I decided that when zombie fiction was, hot back in the day,
right?
Now why not write a legal thriller where the zombie is not the villain, but the lawyer? Because a lot of people, as we know, Bill, think lawyers and zombies
know too well. Yes.
So I wrote that under a pseudonym, but then the first one was called Pay Me in Flesh. And I kind of wrote them as sort of Raymond Chandler-esque legal thrillers.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm re-releasing those under my own name now. And there's also a series of novelettes, which is a term a lot of writers don't know, but it's longer than a short story, shorter than a novella. and it's about a vigilante nun, and it's called Force of Habit. And the idea for that came when my son, as a joke, said, "Hey, Dad, why don't you write a series about a vigilante nun and call it Force of Habit?" And I thought, hey, he thought it was funny, and I thought it was funny, but then I thought, I really like that idea. And so I ended up writing three of these, and I'm going to write more. So
is he getting a cut of the royalties on this? Or?
Nope. He's just getting a pat on the head and a free book every now and then. Yes.
That's sufficient. And you've got the Mike Romeo series, right?
Yes. That's my current series, about an ex-cage fighter with a very mysterious background who ends up in L.A. trying to live under the grid, and things happen, like a church blows up that he's jogging by, and those are the things that kind of drag him into the trouble here in L.A., which I love writing about my hometown because it's so variable and so amenable to any kind of tone, any kind of, I call this the greatest noir city ever. I mean, even more than New York or Chicago. This is a place where anything can happen. It can happen at night and it can happen in the daytime. And so anyway, that's where I set my books.
Mm-hmm. Mike Romeo is probably the only thriller hero I know that both quotes Shakespeare and cage fights. That's a pretty good combo.
Well, I wanted a combination. I thought about doing this sort of lone wolf type of hero. I'm attracted to that genre and that form. But what is different? What could be different about him? Now, my other passion is philosophy. Personally, I love philosophy. I love theology. I like digging into those things. I always have. So I thought, what could be Romeo's background? And so I gave him the background of being a genius who was raised by two college professor, parents, and is accepted into Yale at the age of 14. And there's something major that happens, which I won't reveal so that people can read about it, but that sends him on this other trajectory. But because of his background and his desire to try to figure out what life is about, he does talk in certain ways that very often confuse bad guys.
Series characters are hot right now. Very much in demand, I think, in New York. What do you think is the key to coming up with a good series character?
The old pulp writers used to call a good series character the writer's insurance policy.
Yes.
And so they tried a lot to find them. And then when they clicked, like Perry Mason, it became obviously great for them. I think for a series character needs to have one distinguishing quirk that separates them from just a generic kind of form. Sherlock Holmes is a drug addict, and
poor social skills.
Yeah. But he's also, and then like Hercule Poirot is very fastidious about his appearance, and so on, and so. There's an interesting quirk that sort of humanizes them. Then the other thing is that they should have a skill, obviously, some kind of either a package of skills that help them to do what they do. Now, Holmes, again, a lot of people don't know, was a master sword fighter, and he therefore could use his cane in certain situations. And Miss Marple, who is old and seemingly harmless, it has these keen powers of observation, right, in addition to a knowledge of human nature. So I think that also is a kind of a detail that you need. And then I think they need to be passionate about what they do, not just interested, not just this is my job, but passionate about it. One of the reasons I love the Harry Bosch books by Michael Connelly is that in each book, Bosch, you feel the incredible inner fire to be the voice for these forgotten victims. And there's a reason for that in his backstory. But each book seems to bring that out, and that's why you follow. You follow it because for Bosch, it's really life and death him getting this right. So I think those three things, a quirk, skills, and then real passion for what they're doing.
I think that's a great way of looking at it. So for Mike Romeo, I think you talked about his skill. What's his quirk? His quirk?
Well, I think, again, his quirk is when people talk to him, or when instead of, he can fight. He turned himself into a fighter. So he's got those skills. But instead of just bringing out his fists at a certain time, he will quote, like you said, Emily Dickinson, or that's in the new book. He's challenged to a fight in the first on the first pages of this new book called Romeo's Fight, and the guy says, to Romeo, you don't look so tough. And Romeo says, well, can you quote Emily Dickinson? and the guy just kind of goes, what? And he says, well, then you're not so tough. So that's his wit, I think, is one of his great weapons. And so that comes out. And his quest for truth, because underneath all of this, he is really, really trying to find and where he fits in the world. And what I wanted to do with that is allow the readers not just to vicariously live through his, adventures and his physical overcoming things, but to really go walk with him through those questions, because I think we all need to walk through those questions. So that's why I did it that way.
At some point, you wrote a series of legal thrillers, and the character was Ty Buchanan, right?
Yes.
Okay. Skill, quirk, what's there?
Yeah. Well, for him, what happened in the first book, and the idea for the first book came from an actual incident that happened here in Los Angeles. In fact, as I think about it, all three of those books in that series begin with an incident that actually happened in L.A. Mm-hmm. And the one that triggered it was this horrendous murder. This man shot his wife and then drove his car to a freeway overpass. And he got out of the car and he shot himself, and he fell over the overpass 100 feet down to the other freeway. And he hit right on top of a car and killed the driver of the car. So I open with that incident, and it kills the fiance of my lawyer hero, Ty Buchanan. And what that does is, as the book opens, he gets a clue that his fiance may have been alive after that body hit, and that she was actually murdered. Now, why on earth and how on earth could that have happened? Now, when that happens, something turns inside him where he cannot just continue along the path of the climbing big firm lawyer. He his life is completely overturned. So he starts doing strange things, like when he gets upset with another lawyer facing him across a conference table, he just gets up on the table and starts tap dancing. And a lot of people write to me about that scene. They said, oh, gosh, what a wonderful scene. And I said, what happened was I just needed a different way for this guy to explode. And that's what came to me. And that's one of the fun things about the creative process when we write, is that to come up with these surprising things. I tell writers, try to put something surprising in every scene. It doesn't have to be a big thing, although it can be. Like Raymond Chandler said, if things are dull, just bring in a guy with a gun.
Right.
That can happen. But even if it's just a strange line of dialogue that makes the reader go, why did he say that? That, to me, Bill, is one of the secrets of best-selling fiction, is to have the readers not able to predict what really happens. Because if they do, it's dull. So I find that for every scene, I want to put them a little off so that they're interested in reading on.
Right. At some point, the guy with the gun isn't surprising anymore, which is the problem. That's one of those bits of advice that's easier to say than to actually do. Coming up with a surprise, that can be tough.
Well, and